Live. It's taking a long time. I'm live. Excellent. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Drinks with Kate. I feel a bit formal all of a sudden. Hello, Craig. You win again. Hurrah. It's been a little bit weird here because all of Jill and Richard's neighbours just dropped in just before Drinks with Kate was supposed to happen, so I had to kick them out. We've got rosé. It's actually quite warm in this room actually now, even though it's got a nice cool breeze outside. We're going to pretend that it's heatwave weather like it was on the weekend. I think it might be quite warm in Sydney. Is it warm, Craig, in Sydney? Ready for rosé weather? Hello, Fiona and David. Fiona, did I confuse you with that picture of Polly with the words on her head? Hello, Paul and Roz. It's very warm in Brisbane, I believe, drinking Fleur de Fonceroy Bordeaux, beautiful. Hello, Jeff and Sue. Margan Estate Rosé and Bramble. Favourite rosé from the Hunter. Excellent. Jeff's having a Cumilia Matara rosé, which was the other one that I was thinking about getting. Cotty and John are having Fairbank from Central Victoria. Delicious pesto pasta. How amazing. Hello, Sarah. Confused David. Fair enough. Yeah, it was a bit confusing. It was till about an hour ago, and then the storm came through. Oh, well, that's exciting as well. Storms are good for rosé drinking as well. Rosé is good in storm weather. You know what I'm trying to say. It's been a long week. It's been a really long week. And I still feel like my brain's a bit frazzled. I've got Megan and Sam in the background here desperately waiting for a drink. They've just finished their day's work and they're going to come and steal a bottle from me in a second. But before they do, and before I introduce them, I'm going to show you, I've got two wines today because, you know, two's better than one or something like that. I have, as promised, I have my SC Pinel Arido, and you can see how nice and fogged up the glass is on here, and what a beautiful pale pink colour that is. Look at that gorgeous label, isn't that fabulous? So this, I don't usually do big promotions for other people's wines, but I noticed just as I was sending the email out to you guys today, that they're doing a post-WOMAD deal on 6 packs of the Arido until I think it's the 18th. So I think that's Monday. But you can get 6 of these for $150 on their shop. So if you like the look of this, and it is a delicious rosé, it's nice and crisp and bright and fresh. And there we go. You can see, and it's got the cute little man on the label with his flowers all around him. And it's Grenache, 100% Grenache, 2023. So I'm going to put that in my first glass. And then I'm going to say, Megan, do you want to come and get this from me? Because Megan's got to run away soon. Come and wave to the nice people. This is Megan from Oregon, who's been helping us with vintage. There you go.
Thank you.
Say hi to your mum.
Hi, Mom. I don't think she's
Hi,
on.
Mum.
It's like midnight there.
She'll watch later, though.
I know, I said
Yeah, that'll be nice. Go drink some rosé. Thanks, Megan. And my second rosé that I've got is a Trienne rosé from France, from Provence. So this is also Grenache based. Might have a little bit of Mourvedre in it, but as you can see, it's also a really lovely pale pink. It's got a little bit more colour than the SC Pinel. Hey Sam, do you want to come and get this one so that you guys can have a compare and contrast? Oh, yeah. Sam, this is Sam. He's quite tall. You have to duck down, Sam. Hey! Sam is also from Oregon. We luckily got two folk from just down the road from each other. Never met before, right? Yep. Total coincidence.
Yeah, small world.
Yeah, they've been doing a really good job. There you go. Go have a drink and relax.
It's been a warm day.
It's been a warm day. You got to save some of that for the old folk when they come in. Oh, yeah. So I have SC Pinel here, and I've got the Provence Rosé there, which is, so you can see how pale that SC Pinel is, and you can see how lovely and frosty those glasses are. So my first tip for drinking wine on a hot day is to forget it and stick it in the coldest, particularly if it's white wine or rosé, stick it in the coldest fridge you can find, because it's going to warm up really quickly in the heat, particularly if you're in a humid situation, which you often are in, certainly in Sydney and Brisbane, not so much down here, but we've had a bit of humidity here as well. But in humidity and heat, then the wine heats up really quickly and then it's not refreshing anymore. So getting it really cold before you serve it is a great idea. If you come home from work, it's really hot, you haven't put, hi Daryl, feel free to come in and sit down and grab a glass. These guys will grab you some glasses. And there's rosé on the table. We've got people arriving. It's all very exciting. It's a little social event here today. People who want to come and watch and be quiet in this room and people who want to chat in the other room. So Megan and Sam are getting you a glass or two, Daryl. Now, what was I saying? Oh, Craig, the SC Pinot wines are terrific. For me, the Shirazes are very good, but not my kind of wine. But I love their rosé and I love a lot of their Italian varietals. So very cool. Yours is Merlot, Shiraz, and a little skin contact Pinot Gris. Oh, how lovely! That's very fancy. What Kay is drinking Kangaroo Island mulberry drink with Cappy Blood orange soda. Your summer non-wine go-to. I think that's a great idea. It's also, yeah, on a really hot day, if you don't have your wine cold, then people kind of go, oh, well, you can't use ice cubes in wine and you can't mix them with anything to make it a bit less alcoholic. So let's go for a gin and tonic or a mixed drink or a really cold beer. And those things are all absolutely fine. But I'm here to say that if you are sitting in a hot room, sitting in the shade and it's hot still and your wine's not quite cold enough and it's not doing what you want it to do, then I have absolutely no problem with you putting one small ice cube in there. If you fill the glass half up with ice cubes, you can absolutely do that, but then the wine's going to get diluted really, really quickly. But one small ice cube that melts in a glass of wine is going to actually make the wine it is going to make it a little bit more dilute, but it's going to make it much more appealing to your palate, to your brain, to your poor overheated body than wine that's a bit too warm. So getting the wine cold first is important, but if you don't get it cold in time, then a little ice cube in there to improve things is okay. Mulberry gin, of course, Kay, absolutely. Queerly, Linalool, Friuliana, Malvasia, Estrana, Riesling, and Moscato Giallo fermented on skins in terracotta and flora. Of course, that's what you're drinking, David. That's very fruity of you guys. That's wonderful. So if you want to get your wine cold but you don't want to put ice in it, you've got some other options. If you've got ice and you've got an ice bucket, then the quickest way to get a bottle of wine cold with ice in an ice bucket is half with Metze. Wow, that's awesome, David. Yum. I have to have a sip of wine in a minute because I'm getting thirsty and hungry just listening to you guys talk. Ice bucket, half ice, half water, and you can put your bottle in first and then put the ice and the water on top of it because then you know exactly how much you need to get it up to not quite the top of the ice bucket, but as far up as you can go without it being a spill hazard. If you do that half ice, half water, then the water melts the ice quite quickly. But now all you physicists are going to now be listening very hard, and I'm not going to get into the technical detail of it because I don't think it's necessary on an evening like this evening, but it's something about water as it melts and changes from solid to liquid that it gets slightly colder briefly before it gets warmer. There you go. That's simple science for you. Sam's nodding. Yeah, Sam's a chemist, by the way. So therefore, whenever I say sciencey things, I kind of go, is Sam like grimacing in pain as I say this? Because I can't see any of your faces, so it's okay. Okay, so nice and cold, which means that it's a little bit subdued. And this is why I like to drink a nice Grenache rosé on a hot day, because Grenache rosé tends to have a nice fruitiness to it without being too rich. It has reasonable acidity. It has pretty good alcohol without it being too high. One of my issues with drinking Riesling over chilled, and I do love a simple South Australian Riesling very cold on a hot summer's day as well, but sometimes the acid gets a bit spiky when it gets too cold, whereas a Grenache rosé tends to have slightly softer acidity, so it handles being super chilled a little bit better. This wine, even though it's really cold, it's come out of the fridge, and the fridge is 3 degrees. So it's been in the fridge all day. So it's probably started out at about 3 degrees, and it's warming up slowly in the room. And the fridge is 3 degrees. So it's been in the fridge all day. So it's probably started out at about 3 degrees, and it's warming up slowly in the room. It's still got this beautiful strawberry fruit, cherry fruit kind of aromatic to it. It's just a little bit of floral. It's not too much. It smells cold and it smells tasty, which is what you want on a hot day. Hello, Emily and Kevin. How lovely to see you. I was just talking about Riesling, which I think is a wonderful choice for a hot day. A Riesling with a tiny bit of residual sugar is quite good because that little residual sugar gets kind of toned down as well when you get it really cold. And can do some really nice things. So Fiona is saying, I don't know why, but this white blend goes well with the saltiness of the food. So my next thing about the snacks is I always find that when it's hot, I want something salty and I want something that is easy to prepare. Now, Jill is threatening to make carrot fritters for us at some stage in the next half an hour, but she's also got guests chatting in the other room, so she might forget. In the meantime, I have some black olives that I grew and cured myself a couple of years ago. So I've just warmed them slightly with some olive oil and some vinegar because they were a bit salty. So I rinsed them off and warmed them with some oil and vinegar. I think that's olives are a great match to rosé. They're really good with those kind of Italian blended varieties like the Inchleys are drinking. But when you've got really cold wine and a fruitiness to it, then having salty, bitter food is yum. I've also got an olive dip, and I've got some focaccia that I made earlier. And Megan and Sam, if you want some focaccia to go with your dip on the table, don't feel that you have to wait for Jill to serve it all up nicely. Please feel free to go into the kitchen and help yourselves if you're feeling hungry after a big day. So I'm still, Craig, is the Pinot Noir sacrilege? No, Pinot Noir Rosé is not sacrilege, but I don't love Pinot Noir Rosé. I just think it tends to often be a little bit too sweet-fruited and a bit soft. I want my rosé to have a little bit more edginess to it, and I find that Grenache tends to give me that. Emily's having Paradigm Hill Riesling, delicious, very good. So yeah, and warm olives are good because you can actually do them in the microwave if you don't want to turn any heat on the stove. I did mine in a little frying pan, but you can stick them in the microwave briefly and warm them up that way, and then you're not actually creating any extra heat in a hot room on a hot day. So this Pinel wine, I think, is opening up with some really nice kind of rose petally kind of aromatics, but it's a bit kind of, I find Pinot Noir Rosé to be a little bit strawberries and cream. This is kind of strawberries and rhubarb, if that makes sense. A bit more tangy, lovely and cold. But another tip on a hot day is keep your wine on ice or in the fridge and just pour yourself little glasses because the wine's going to heat up quite quickly in the glass when you're sitting there sipping it. And you don't want to be tempted to drink it too fast because the other thing about drinking wine on a hot day, particularly if you're in the sun or even in the shade, is that we tend to drink it for the sake of being thirsty and wanting to cool down rather than to appreciate the wine. And that means that you can, if you don't pay attention to how fast you're drinking it, or you drink it too fast because you don't want it to get too warm, then you can get a little bit squiffier than you expect to. And alcohol does tend to go to your head a bit more when it's hot, probably because you're a bit dehydrated. A glass of water before you start drinking and a big glass of water for every glass of wine you have. Always important, especially important. Can't speak, I'm sorry. Vintage is getting to me. Especially important on a hot day. When you need extra fluid. That's coming back to the salty food. You also need salt when you've been hot and sweaty because your body is excreting salt. So that's why we crave salty food when it's hot and we're tired, chips, olives, salty dip, all of those things work really, really well. On a hot day, I tend to steer clear of cheese and crackers because the cheese tends to melt and go gross in the heat. I tend to steer clear of charcuterie for the same reason. It kind of dries out and goes all kind of crusty in the heat very quickly, or it gets oily. The oil kind of seeps out of the meat and it's unpleasant, and that means that you don't really want to eat it. And I also think cooking things on a hot day is a ridiculous thing to do because it's just going to make you hotter. So finding cold things from the fridge that you can pull out and nibble on, I really like, and I couldn't find them at the shops today, but on a hot day with a rosé, little radishes cut into quarters and just dipped in melty butter, not melted butter, but just soft butter, dipped into soft quality butter and some salt and crunch, crunch, crunch. That's delicious on a hot day. And you can pull the radishes out of the fridge. Twisties are good, Paul and Roz, at the other end of the scale. And in France, in Provence, they have this wonderful tradition with a Provençal rosé like this one that I'm on now, that I'm smelling. It's really different from the Arido. So the Arido is made in a sort of, Arido is Spanish for dry. So it's made in a dry Spanish rosé kind of style, and it's got that slightly fruitier, juicier. It's also, because it's Australian, it's kind of fruitier as well. Whereas this Provençal rosé is quite minerally. It's got a real nice. It's got a really nice, almost sort of pink grapefruit kind of aromatic to it. It's a bit citrusy, but it's like blood orange and pink grapefruit rather than lemons and limes. It's also got this really interesting, trying to work out what it is. It's kind of like, it's a herbal note, but it's kind of like fennel or anise. There's a sort of slightly licoricey anise, but green kind of a character to it. Maybe even reminiscent of rocket or something like that, or arugula as they call it in America. They're like going, rocket? Why are you eating rockets? We're teaching them Australian. They're doing pretty well. What do you think, guys? Can you see anything else in that French rosé that I've kind of missed? It's kind of, it's sort of savoury and herbal. It's got a little bit of a fruitiness, but it's not nearly as fruity as the Pinel wine, is it? I love the fact that it's super cold. So it just makes your mouth and your throat kind of nice and cold, but it's also got this lovely dryness to it and flinty kind of minerality on the palate. So it's almost like drinking cold water from a mountain stream, you know, that sort of very poetic. Yes, it's very refreshing. It's probably more refreshing than the Australian wine, which is lovely, and I'd be very happy to drink that on a hot day. But the Provence rosé is just super refreshing, super clean, dry, yummy. And the reason I wanted to open a bottle of Provence rosé is because it reminds me of last year when I was in Paris with my niece Charlotte, and they were having a little bit of a heat wave over there as well. And of course, because I was there with my 16-year-old niece, who I adore and who is much fitter and more in shape than her fat old aunt, we will, just because I was hot didn't mean we weren't going to be racing all over Paris looking at all the sites and visiting everything. I'm just going to shove this in my mouth and finish the story in a minute. So we did lots of legwork in Paris. We were all over the place. It was hot. I'm with the 16-year-old, so not really a lot of opportunities for drinking bottles of wine in the shade, but we caught up with some friends, and she was very good. She hardly flinched when I ordered a glass of wine with lunch. I'm like, we're on holidays, it's okay. And she already had a little try and kind of went, oh yeah, it's all right. But we caught up with some friends from Australia, some friends of mine from Australia who just happened to be in Paris at the same time and saw on my Facebook feed that I was there. And we went to a bar, and in Paris, in the bars, the wine choice, it depends, like it's really hard to tell unless you've got like a solid recommendation from someone and you go looking for the perfect wine bar. If you just go into somewhere that looks nice, usually they'll have an okay selection of stuff, but the safest thing to order in a Paris bar in summer is a bottle of Provence rosé, and they all have it. They usually have 2 or 3 different levels of quality. So you order the middle. If there's 3, you order the mid-priced one, not the cheapest one, not the most expensive one. And it wasn't quite cold enough, so we got a bucket of ice and we put a couple of ice blocks in the glasses, and that just slipped down like raspberry cordial. It was delicious. So I thought, in memories of hot days in Paris, and in memory of the hot 4 days that we had over the weekend, I thought we had to have a little glass of Provence rosé as well. Okay, what are people saying? Emily and Karen are having hummus with raw veggies and crackers, which seems to be delicious. Yeah, absolutely. And really good hot weather snacks, crunchy veggies, nice cold dip, works really well with the wine, particularly Riesling, because Riesling is great as a sort of an alternative to a squeeze of lemon on anything. So anything that's got lemon juice in it, anything that is nice with an extra squeeze of lemon on it is going to be great with Riesling. So freshly shucked fresh oysters, if you can get them. Don't eat fresh oysters in summer if you don't like them to be creamy, because in summer they're spawning and they go all creamy and kind of gooey, and they're not nearly as delicious as they are at other times of the year. I know everyone's like, oh, it's summer, let's have oysters and white wine. But oysters in spring, autumn and winter, leave them in the water in summer, I say. Raspberry cordial is very good, Craig. I agree. Fiona, we're thinking to take on the Riesling after our rosé. Oh, the rosé's disappeared fast. That is the problem with rosé. It does slip down very, very quickly, particularly if you're not talking a lot and listening to me. A cheeky Rochefort Estate rosé for the Inchleys. It's a Cabernet rosé, which is yum. Yeah, absolutely delicious. So I was going to say, in Provence, as a sort of a variation on the Russo's raw veggies and hummus, they'll make an aioli royale, which is basically a big bowl of homemade garlic mayonnaise, which you need to keep in the fridge because it needs to be really cold on a hot day, obviously, because otherwise it gets a bit gloopy and gross. But then you have all the raw vegetables to dip into it, and that fieriness of raw garlic and the egginess of the mayonnaise when it's cold and fresh and lovely, with radishes and carrot sticks and sugar snap peas and capsicum. And what else do I like to dip into it? Oh, bits of broccoli and bits of, oh my goodness, now my brain's gone. What's white broccoli called? Cauliflower. Thank you, Megan. All those things in a aioli, delicious, with a nice big glass of very cold rosé. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Nice to meet everybody.
You gotta come by and say goodbye to everyone before you leave. No, I just actually, yeah. If you could pop them back over here, we can have a look at. Thank you. And is Richard going to come in and see? You haven't seen him? Yeah. Oh, he was around. Bye, Sam. Bye, Megan. Have a restful evening. See you tomorrow. They're back early tomorrow to make more wine. So see you soon, guys. Okay, Craig, is there a fine wine standard to Provence, or is it all drink now? So with rosé, one of the reasons they make so much rosé in Provence is because it's too warm to grow most classic French white grape varieties and make crisp, fresh white wine from them. These days, with modern winemaking and refrigeration and that kind of thing, things are a little bit different. But traditionally, it was very difficult to make white wine that was going to be delicious to drink from places like Provence, because it's so hot that the grapes get too ripe, and then the wine's kind of rich and heavy and high alcohol, and that's not refreshing. Grenache grows very easily in that part of the world, and from young vines, it doesn't have enough intensity of flavour and depth to make really high quality red wine. Whereas when the vines get older and you're making, your red wine from Grenache, then that's where I guess the fine wine standard comes in, Craig, because there's some very high quality Grenache-based red wines from Provence and surrounds, and different levels of quality in the rosé market. Most of it is drink now or drink relatively soon. It's not long-lasting wine because rosé is not. It's all about freshness and brightness and juiciness. Jill, you might have to come and grab these bottles so that you can help yourselves to some rosé. We've got the SC Pinel rosé, which I'm going to show people again before you take it away. So that's the Australian one. And then we've got the Trien rosé. Do you want to put your head in and wave at people?
Yes, all right.
Trien rosé. There's Jill.
Hello, people.
Trien rosé from Provence with a little boar on it because the Provençals like to have a bit of boar sausage with their rosé.
This wins on label, definitely.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
absolutely. It's a gorgeous label.
We'll put that on plate.
Okay, excellent. So yes, so a lot of rosé is kind of at different levels of drink now, easy drinking style. But there's a couple of producers who make really high-end, expensive rosé, and one of them is Domaine Ott, OTT, and they take their Grenache berries and they squish each berry individually, and they just use the sort of free-run juice from the squished berries. And it's a very, very pale rosé because it doesn't spend any time on skins, and it's pretty delicious. But last time I bought a bottle, which was over 10 years ago, it was nearly $100 a bottle, and I think the price has gone up since then. So it's a bit hard to I find it a bit hard to justify spending that sort of money on fancy rosé when I think $30 a bottle rosé is bloody delicious and what I feel like drinking on a hot day. So that's my story of quality in rosé. There are rosés that are more expensive than others. Some of them are expensive because they're made by or they're owned by famous people like Brad Pitt and previously Angelina Jolie, although they've gone through a big breakup, and Brad's managed to hold on to their rosé vineyard and winery. I don't think Brad makes the wine, but it's very famous in the world and people buy it because it's Brad and Angelina's rosé, and it's quite expensive as a result. You've also got Whispering Angel, which is a very famous big brand, not that expensive, pretty ordinary wine actually, but it's got a beautiful label and it's a really pretty colour, and serve it cold enough you can't taste it anyway. So these are the decisions to make. But yeah, so there are different levels of quality, but most of them fall into the Fight Club rosé. If it's your first time you have to drink, absolutely. So Paul and Roz are saying it's noticeable how much rosé is being consumed in France in our last 2 trips. Yeah, I mean, rosé is really popular in France. They've had some hot summers recently, global warming, and rosé is an easy wine style to drink. It's also a pretty colour, and don't ever underestimate the prettiness of the colour of rosé to sell a few extra bottles to people who don't really care what they're drinking but want it to look nice as well as taste okay. David was saying ages ago, because I've been rabbiting on, that you had a Cabernet Riesling at lunch last week. Seems that won't be around forever. Cabernet, I love Cabernet Riesling, and I think that there will be, but there's more styles. There's more. Sorry, someone's bitten me. You all right, Paul? Oh dear, Polly's having a little choking episode. She's fine. Should go and talk to. She's being really mean to Sue. Sue's been in India for 3 weeks, and she's just come back and come to visit us for the first time today. And Polly wouldn't speak to her for the first half an hour that she was here. She's now speaking to her because Sue's got food. Yeah, absolutely, David. I think that there's going to be less Cabernet and more dry Riesling coming out of Germany because it's getting warmer and they're having really warm summers and they're getting that fruit riper. So the Cabernet style is becoming a bit rarer, for sure. We don't tell anyone about it. Absolutely, Craig. Right, I'm going back to my Pinel Rosé, which does look a bit estery. Looks a bit lolly shop after the Provence rosé. I think it's a wine. I think Sue will probably prefer the French wine. Making assumptions, knowing people's palates. It is lovely and cold, and they were serving this. So anyone who I've never been because it always happens during vintage, but I hear Wine Adelaide is an amazing music festival, and a lot of the wine local wine companies have got sort of involved in Wine Adelaide, and the South Australians are very good at drinking wine in hot weather, and a music festival is no exception to that rule. They just make it colder, and they choose the right wines, a Riesling, a Rosé, a slightly off dry Riesling style, all of those things, and just enjoy these wines in the sun. Sparkling Shiraz at the Kenora Cup, I've got to say, in February, is, I believe, something to be avoided, because cold, sparkling red wine with sugar in it is absolutely a recipe for major headache at about lunchtime if you start at breakfast, which is when they usually do egg and bacon rolls and sparkling Shiraz at breakfast before the cup. Just fraught with danger. Karen's come back from the cellar with a 10 by tractor Riesling grape from Paradigm. Well, that will be lovely and refreshing. It'll be young. Hello, Polly. I know you haven't had any dinner yet. You have to go and talk to Jill about it in the kitchen. She's taken that on board. She's gone, okay, I'll go talk to someone else then about food. Leonie drank too much Miraval in Ireland. Fair enough. David's saying that you had the first vintage of the 10 minutes by tractor Riesling. A little bit of sugar, high acid. Yeah, I haven't tasted the current release, but I think they've made it for 2 years now. Just going to eat. So, Sue, were you saying you like the Australian wine better than the French wine? No. The French wine's a slightly darker coloured one. It's a bit more minerally. So the Provence wine, the French one is the darker one. The Australian one's the lighter coloured one. You like the lighter one? There you go. Nice. What would I know? I think they're both really refreshing. So the other trick on a hot summer's day, if you're feeling like you want a few glasses of wine but you're a bit worried about it going to your head, something else you can do, as well as putting an ice block or two in, is making a wine spritzer. And everyone goes, gasp, you can't put sparkling water or lemonade into wine. You absolutely can. I just think choose the wine that's appropriate for the job. And I would personally not go lemonade because that makes it too sweet for me. But it's their own, bit of lemonade, bit of orange and lemon chopped up, and you've kind of got a white sangria in the glass. But a nice fruity rosé. Thank you, Jill.
Jill's famous carrot fritters.
Jill's-
Go with everything.
Yay. And if you've got someone silly enough on a hot day to stand over a deep fryer who will make you carrot fritters, then you're a very lucky person, and I am one of those lucky people. Fruity rosé, fruity Sauvignon Blanc. If you're not offended by the flavours of Sauvignon Blanc, but I know some people are. But I think fruity Sauvignon Blanc on a hot day, really, really cold, can work really well. It tastes like a lemon, like a frosty fruit icy pole. A nice bright Riesling can also work. Half wine, very cold soda water out of the fridge, couple of ice blocks, and you've got yourself a little wine cocktail. Give it a go sometime. Don't do it with your fabulous Moorooduc Estate Chardonnay that's rare and special and that you want to drink with your perfect meal. Do it with something you don't care too much about that's reasonably inexpensive. But remember, if you spend a little bit more on a bottle of wine, then it's going to be much less It's going to hurt a lot less at the other end. But yeah, absolutely, Fiona. Yes, dilute it and chill it completely. Sauvignon Blanc, mix it with the sink. Yes, David. I know a lot of people do. Me too. But I've got to say, on a really, really hot day, if I'm making a wine spritzer, I would probably use a Riesling or a Rosé or maybe a Semillon Sauvignon Blanc or even no, Pinot Gris is not going to work because it's a bit soft. Something that's kind of sharp and fruity anyway. Good acid, good fruitiness, could be delicious. Please don't feel that you have to take up drinking Sauvignon Blanc if you don't enjoy it just because it's a hot day and I've told you to put in a wine spritzer. Use something else. Semillon Sauvignon Blanc could be okay. Kay's found some Sauvignon Blanc that she's enjoyed. I don't mind it if it comes from the Loire Valley. I think Sancerre can be delicious, but I probably wouldn't put Sancerre in a cold fridge and then put sparkling water in it because it's a bit more subtle. Riesling, a $20 Riesling from South Australia, from the Clare Valley. That'll be all lemons and limes and really fresh and bright, lovely acidity. A little bit of sparkling water in there and a couple of ice blocks and a slice of lemon. It's like a wine cocktail, delicious. Or just keep putting your bottle of wine into the ice bucket before you pour yourself another glass and keep it nice and cold and keep yourself fresh. The other tricks that you can do if you're and you're feeling a bit warm, you can dip your handkerchief in there and then just pop it around your neck and you've got a nice cold handkerchief around your neck. That's also a good way to cool down without even having to use the wine. So not all bad. Absolutely, David. We could talk about Sancerre one of these days. So I hope that I have managed to cool you down and refresh you tonight. We didn't even talk about things like gin and tonics. A very cold beer can be absolutely fabulously refreshing on a hot day. But the thing that I am going to mention before we finish up is red wine. Red wine on a hot day. Because sometimes you just want a little bit of red wine. It's a hot day. You might be having, I don't know, a little steak tartare. That's cold, but it's nice with some red wine. I highly recommend Pinot Noir from the fridge on a hot day. Again, you probably don't want to get it down to 3 degrees, but if it does get that cold, then you just want to probably pull it out of the fridge 10 minutes before you want to drink it, or have it in the glass, let it warm up in the glass. If you're hot, if the air's hot, if everything's hot except for the wine, it's going to warm up really quickly. And when I was in Sydney last week at the Sydney Opera House during the International Women's Day, I had a couple of bottles of Pinot Noir in the ice, on top of the ice. The ice melted and one of them fell in underneath everything else, and I didn't find it until about half an hour before the tasting finished, and it was my last bottle of Pinot Noir. I pulled it out. It was icy cold, and I went, and I apologised to people. But it was hot and steamy on Friday night, as anyone who was in Sydney will remember. And it was delicious. The 2020 Estate Pinot Noir works beautifully cold on a hot, steamy night. It holds onto its fruit. It's got velvety enough tannins to handle being cooled down like that, and it works really, really well. A light Cab Franc on a hot day, slightly chilled, works really well, Craig. Beaujolais, a light Beaujolais on a hot day, amazing. Sangiovese, Fiona, I find has a bit too much tannin often to cope with being chilled down too much, but again, it depends on who's made it, how they've made it. Saumur. A Cabernet Franc, a Saumur style Cabernet Franc. Barney Flanders makes a sort of a heavy rosé style of Cabernet Franc that he's named after his grandma. Is to be served chilled, which is fantastic. David's agreeing that the 2020 is awesome. And we are, Leonie keeps saying to me how worried she is that we're going to run out of the 2020 Estate Pinot Noir, and we will one day. We've got reasonably good quantities at the moment, but if it is a wine that you love and you want to stock up on it before the 2021 comes out, I'd say you've probably got a month or two before we're moving over. Sonia was Sonia, you were at WOMAD, and only someone's wine on offer. Penfolds? No. It's your word has got behind the heart, Sonia, and I haven't worked out how to do it. So if someone else writes a comment, then I'll be able to send a comment. Someone write something. Doesn't matter what. Maybe you needed to be in a VIP or something. Only Pinel wine on offer. Yeah, okay. So they must have sponsored the whole of Wine Adelaide. The beer was more refreshing. I get it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Very good. Leonie at Celador is very obsessed with the 2020 estate. We think it's rather delicious. So yes, I think at Wine Adelaide, it sounds like it was really hot there. I'm not sure how much wine I would have been drinking out in the sun. I think probably I agree with you, Sonia. The beer would have been possibly more refreshing on that occasion. But if you like the Pinel Rosé, you can get 6 bottles for $150 on their website right now. And we don't make rosé here at Moorooduc. We make our Pinot Gris on skins, which also works quite well chilled, but not so chilled. Even at the WOMAD restaurant, you had champagne. Oh, yeah, well, champagne is the other thing to drink on a hot day, and you can drink that super cold and just enjoy the bubbles. I'd probably drink a non-vintage party Piper Heidsieck, or Porriget is, a little bit fancier but really lovely as a summer wine. But you know that the Champenoise, Moët de Chandon, Morm, and I'm sure there's a couple of others, have made special champagne that's made to put ice blocks in. And they've chosen base wine that's a little bit richer and fuller. They put a bit more sugar in it. And it was designed because at places like the Cannes Film Festival and on big cruises in Cannes in the south of France, people would be drinking champagne. It wouldn't be cold enough, so they'd put an ice block or two in to cool it down. And the Champenoise said, well, if you're going to do that, we need to make a different blend of champagne to make it more delicious and perfectly balanced once it's had a block or two of ice melted in it. So they came up with this whole concept, which I think is pretty cool. I think my dog is getting a little bit overexcited, out of control, and we've got to the 42-minute mark, and I think I'm going to finish things up here. What about those chilled metal ice blocks? Oh, Sonia, yes. In fact, Craig just mentioned them right at the beginning, and I skimmed right over that, so thank you for bringing me back. I've never used them. Craig said at the beginning of this session, and I've heard from people before, that they're pretty good, but they lose their coldness very quickly, so you need to keep putting them in. But they don't melt in the wine, so that's an advantage. 10 minutes Special Actor Riesling's too sweet after the dry rosé. There you go. Jack and Zach and Hannah are having bubbles, kind of elderflower cocktail, which is half Prosecco with Saint-Germain, lime and mint on lots of ice in a red wine glass. The only way we drink Prosecco. And that was going to be my final comment about wine on a hot day. And that's a Prosecco cocktail. So whether you have an Aperol spritz, a Campari spritz, whether you have elderflower spritz, Prosecco is fantastic as the base of a cocktail because it's quite fruity. It's got nice bubbles. Serve it really, really cold in a big glass with half Prosecco, a bit of whatever else you're mixing into it, some lime and mint, fantastic. And you can put some soda water in there as well to water it down a little bit if you want to have a few, and you've got to, be sensible afterwards. I think a spritz is a fantastic way to drink wine on a hot, hot day for all of those reasons. It brings in a little bit of sugar as well to the mix, because on a hot day, our bodies, because we're getting rid of salt and we're using up sugar, we need a little bit of extra energy. That sugar will give us a little lift of energy to cope with the fatiguing influence of the heat, and have that with some nice, even salty nuts, whatever you feel like, get some salt into you. I was talking to some friends of ours who are very, very experienced older people who have traveled a lot, doctors as well, and they said when you're hot and and you're sweating a lot, it's really important to input some salt. And what they were doing, they were English and we were in Spain at the time, they would get water and get those salt sachets from a restaurant and put it into the water and stir it up and drink the salty water. And they'd say, if you can't taste the salt, it means that you're salt deficient and you'll feel dreadful. The salt helps you to absorb the water and helps you to be less dehydrated quicker. So that's a little old-fashioned tip for you. I prefer to do it with a glass of water and some salty plain chips or some salt and vinegar chips, which salt and vinegar chips don't go with wine at all, but I still love them. You could have some Cep or Camembert chips from Celador if you wanted to be fancy, but salty chips, salty nuts, salty olives, anchovies on toast, anything with salt in it on a hot day is really good for, as long as you're having lots of water as well and just the right amount of wine. It's going to keep you feeling as good as you possibly can when it's hot and fatiguing outside. I am going to love you and leave you. Oh, Craig, you found some Canberra Prosecco last week, which was actually pretty good. Larita, I've heard of Larita. I've heard it's not too bad. Ice Imperial from Moët Chandon is the one for ice to be added to. Absolutely, Kay. Domaine Chandon makes one as well. Oh, Polly, you're getting Hatchie and Mickey all revved up, Pol. So dogs on the other side of the call are hearing your barking, Polly. Yes, indeed. Enjoying the salty aged. Sonia, I keep getting half your message and the rest is hidden behind the heart. Thank you, Craig. La Dame, you brought back from Adelaide. I don't know what that is. Is that a type of sausage? Edam. Good. Excellent. Got it. Next week, we are powering through. We're starting wine 1 of box 2, and I haven't looked up what it is. Who can tell me? Have you ordered box 2? We've still got some at the winery if you need one or two. It's a great box. Feeling very badly. I think it's one of the Devil Bean Creeks. I thought it was La Grande Dame. Absolutely. That's what I was getting confused by, David. Moorooduc Estate website. Pinot Gris on Skins 2023. Awesome. Thank you, Kay. I knew you'd come to my rescue eventually. 2023 Pinot Gris on Skins, Moorooduc Estate next week, box 2. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do 3 before I go. Then I go overseas for 2 weeks, and then we come back and do the other 3 when I get back. Hopefully we'll have Craig or Kay or anyone else who wants to have a go at running a tasting on those 2 weeks that I'm away. Send me an email if you're interested in hosting an online tasting on one of those 2 weeks. Otherwise, it's just drinks at home without Kate those 2 days. It's going to be awesome. You haven't ordered the box yet, Emily. Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. You can stop by this weekend to pick it up. We've got some made up. We've got all the wines here. It's all good. Come on over and get it, or get Pete. Anyone who's in Melbourne or around the peninsula, we can deliver before, if the orders are placed before 4 o'clock on Tuesday next week, because Pete does his deliveries on Wednesday. Okay, I think that's all for today. I'm going to love you and leave you and go and have another glass of cold rosé over at the other table. But looking forward to seeing nice pagots, David. I don't understand. Carrot fritters rule. I will send you an email on Monday about what we're going to be eating with the Pinot Gris on Skins. Until then, see you all later. Have a lovely evening. Have a great week. Stay cool. Drink rosé.